Okay, thank you very much for coming. I will be answering partly some of your questions, by the way, about community interpreting training in Greece, provided by NGOs mostly. Okay, this is the structure of my presentation. I will start with some definitions, because here we're mainly interested in conference interpreting, so I will say a few things about what community interpreting is. For me, the term is community interpreting or public service interpreting, not cultural mediation. I have to make that clear. And I will show you why on the way. Community interpreting services and training in Greece, and some research projects, recent research projects utilizing online media. About the definitions, this is from the National Standard Guide for Community Interpreting in Canada. They say that community interpreting, also known as institutional interpreting, is usually done in the consecutive mode, in a dialogue-like interaction. It enables communication between limited English proficient and limited French proficient speakers, this is for Canada, of course, and providers of public services such as healthcare, government agencies, community centers, legal settings, educational institutions, and social services. Interpreters working in this type of setting usually work into and out of two of their working languages. So there is a difference, because we usually work into our A language in conference interpreting. TIPS or community interpreting, TIPS is the other acronym, another acronym we use, which is translation and interpreting for public services, which again states that it's a specific area within the field of translation studies, dedicated to the study of the communication that occurs in public service settings between service providers and clients. And these clients are typically members of a minority group whose unfamiliarity goes beyond mere language and extends to the system of values, practices, and representations present within the host country. And when it started, only in the 1980s and 90s, in the face of mounting communication problems in the public sector institutions, that interpreting in the community acquired increasing visibility. Thus, community interpreting, also referred to as public service interpreting, and cultural interpreting emerged as a wide new field of interpreting practice, with healthcare interpreting and legal interpreting as the most significant institutional domains. Now, the issue in Greece, well, we're all aware of the situation. Some of the statistics that I got from the police website, and I put them in one table, starting in 2010 and coming up to 2014. You can see some of the numbers. Based on some rough estimations, we have at the time about 1 million undocumented immigrants in Greece from different origin countries. And recent changes, last year, we have a comparison between 2014, 2015. You can see the increase, and at the moment I think there are about 60,000 people in various centers all over the country who have, I think all of them have applied for asylum. Languages by country of origin, again, I created this table based on the people, the immigrants and their countries of origin. You can see from this table how complicated things are and how difficult it is to cater for the linguistic needs of all these people and for the training of the interpreters for these people. What are the services now that have been provided in Greece and the training? First of all, concerning the etymology, unfortunately, we have no community interpreters in Greece. They're all called, for some reason, intercultural mediators, cultural mediators, or whatever their name is, and also court interpreters. What is the situation in courts? Interpreting in courts, very low qualifications, no training whatsoever by any authority, by any body, no accreditation or certification, extremely low remuneration, 17 euro per client, long delays in payment from a few months to a few years, no organization, no evaluation. This is in courts. For the asylum service now, which has been recently restructured, we have interpreting provided by one NGO, Metaction, Metadrasi in Greece, 10-day training. We don't know the quality, the material is not available. After the training, candidates are tested and certified by the NGO itself. Interpreters are forced to sign exclusive contract with the NGO. The names of the interpreters are kept in a secret list, they're not provided. Interpreters sign with a code number given to them by the NGO when they interpret for the asylum service. Their remuneration is unknown. I contacted the NGO, but they provided no information. And the conditions, the working conditions are again unknown for these people. Interpreting for healthcare services, here always intercultural mediators, fragmented services only when there is funding by a source, any source, usually EU, training by private vocational training centers from 3 to 10 days, unknown remuneration again, and unknown working conditions. There is no follow-up on these services. Some of the projects now funded by the European Fund for the Integration of Third Country Nationals, this is the main body that has been funding these projects and the training. Most of these projects, when it says, for example, intercultural mediation in hospitals, we have a short period before these people are used in hospitals of training, a short period of training, 3 to 7, 10 days maximum. So it started in 2007. You can see that all funding given so far is for intercultural mediation. There is no reference at all to interpreters. And there is no definition for intercultural mediation or an intercultural mediator. There are definitions, but they really cause immense confusion. Training providers, not universities, private vocational training centers, and non-governmental organizations. Now, the university involvement. We have one School of Foreign Languages, Translation and Interpreting, located on the island of Corfu. They have undergraduate interpreting modules, but no community interpreting. We also have in our department, in the School of English, this is the entire Aristotle University, I'm sorry, that's a mistake. It's an interdisciplinary course involving all schools of foreign languages for schools in the Aristotle University and the School of Modern Greek. There is a postgraduate course, but only on conference interpreting. And why should people study for community interpreting in Greece when the remuneration is so low? Why should they give 2 years of their lives for that? There is no motive, in other words. And we also have the Department of Applied Foreign Languages and Management and Commerce, the Epirus Institute of Technology, which has conducted a number of research projects on court interpreting and other forms of community interpreting, but again, they offer no courses on community interpreting. Recently, the Department of Turkish Studies and Modern Asian Studies in Athens announced a new postgraduate program of studies in interpreting with the following specializations: A, interpreting for EU institutions, B, liaison interpreting, and C, community interpreting. Now, this term is only in English in the program. The other two are in Greek, and I translated them, but this is, as you see it, community interpreting. And of course, that has been an announcement. It hasn't started running yet. Now, the training provided by Metadrasi, by this NGO, they have 2 manuals. One is the interpreter's manual, and these are the contents, forms of interpreting, note-taking, etc. And there is a guide to intercultural mediation. Both of them are in Greek. Well, I've been researching this area for a long time, and I contacted the organization, asked for their material. They refused to provide it because they stated that they have copyright. I did manage to find one of them, the second, Guide to Intercultural Mediation. And what I realized when I had it was that it's completely misguiding, because it talks about intercultural mediation, or rather mediation in the sense of an extrajudicial process. It's the same word. Okay, so you can see that this is something that I translated from pages 3 and 4 of their material, which states that mediation, and the whole book is about that. A mediation is a process in which a neutral third party helps in settling a dispute between 2 or more parties. So you can understand the misguidance of the whole project. And this is one of the 2 main manuals. It is an extrajudicial process during which the mediator facilitates communication between the 2 parties, helps them focus on the problem and make suggestions, etc., etc. It is different from simple negotiation, where the 2 parties negotiate a solution between themselves, and arbitration, where the arbitrator issues a decision, etc., etc. You can see it's very clear what they mean. And this is, again, from the manual, the role of the intercultural mediator, who is called upon to intervene, etc. I have been interpreting for training for mediation as an extrajudicial process, and I know very well that this is from a manual on that process. It has nothing to do with interpreting whatsoever. It gives a completely different and distorted perception of what an interpreter does. So the question is, how can you train someone to be an interpreter, to be a community interpreter, based on that material? I don't know. Now, there have been some recent projects utilizing new media. One of them is Sonitor, and these are the partners that you see at the bottom. They have this video. I will just show a little part of that.
Sonitor. Training of cultural mediators utilizing new social networking software. Over the last few decades, the scale of migration has been growing considerably throughout Europe. Due to migration, the population of EU member states has increased, on average, by 1.7 million per year. Migration brings about more cultural diversity and also remarkable economic opportunities. But with the increase in immigration, racism and xenophobia are also on the rise. People find it difficult to live with diversity, to interact and to do business with unknown people. It's an
introductory video. And the Sonitor training stated that they will provide that the knowledge, skills and abilities you have gained can be identified and assessed, access to useful information. The bullet points are not well structured in terms of grammar, that the knowledge and then access and then a channel and then be awarded, so they should have been more careful with that. Access to useful information, a channel through which you can cooperate with other cultural mediators, exchanging views, be awarded a certificate of participation by the Sonitor Project Syndicate, etc. The cultural mediation capitulary, this is the wrong word probably, I don't know what they translated it from, I don't know what the original word it was, etc. Now, the Sonitor project and their site has been in disuse for a couple of months now. It's not working. We just have the first page, so it's not working any longer. Then we have this platform that was created, an intercultural mediators platform, and it had these goals, but again, this was addressed only to third country nationals who legally reside in the country. Bad translation again, bad English, not really working again. And this is a project that is ongoing time, and more or less the same partners from Greece, Open University and Private Training Center.
How easy is it for you to understand your doctor? The jargon of civil servants? Legal procedures? Do you feel sometimes they speak another language? Well, you may ask them and they will try to say it all again, in a simpler way. But what if they're taught to a migrant? How can they explain all that complicated stuff to somebody who doesn't speak the same language? Can you think of the effects of bad understanding? The delays caused to those waiting in line? That's where intercultural interpreters...
Okay, I like that. They play with words here, intercultural interpreters and mediators. So they're not very sure, I think, of who they're addressing and what they're talking about. And here, a definition from their site. According to these definitions, intercultural mediation refers to the facilitation of the integration process through the removal of both linguistic and cultural barriers, covering a broad range of tasks that are between the two extremes of a spectrum, with pure linguistic services as provided by interpreters on the one end, and strict conflict resolution as provided by legal experts or other types of mediators on the other end. Effective communication is the core issue in intercultural mediation. To me, this is completely confusing. I don't know if it makes sense to you. And for example, they do have some output, some intellectual output as they call it, some material that you can find on their website. I looked at the training material. I expected to find material for training, and what this includes, core training material, for example, if we click that, books that they suggest, okay? So not very useful, I would say. So as a conclusion, I think I've had enough criticism. And the next step, I believe, we're a small country, there are very few of us who are involved in interpreting, even fewer in community interpreting. And I think we all have the responsibility to create a short training. Let's start from a short training program for community interpreters, perhaps starting with court interpreting, healthcare interpreting, and organize and provide accreditation and evaluation. I believe this is necessary, because that will establish some ground rules for these people to work productively and effectively, and indeed provide services, rather than continue on all this philology of intercultural mediation. Thank you.